The dim lights of the alien medical bay flickered like tired stars, and in their weak glow, Princess Medic Lazara stepped inside with soft, nervous breaths. She had treated many wounded soldiers in her life, but tonight felt different. Heavier, as if the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a warm cloth and a small bowl of healing water, and for a moment she wondered why her heart beat so fast when she walked toward the human soldier, lying on the center table. He looked impossibly still, almost like stone, broad shoulders rising just a little with each slow breath. The thermal blanket covered him from the chest down, hiding the strange wounds and strange armor they had found fused with his skin after the battle. Lazara had only seen humans in war footage, fierce and unstoppable. Yet here was one alone, broken, silent, and somehow pulling her closer with a gravity she couldn't explain. She dipped the cloth into the glowing water, the surface trembling the instant her fingers touched it as if sensing her hesitation. Then she stepped beside the table and pressed the cloth gently against the human's shoulder. The warmth spread across his skin, and for a heartbeat everything felt normal, calm, almost peaceful. Then something moved under the blanket. It wasn't a twitch, not a reflex. It was a slow ripple like liquid metal shifting from one place to another. Lazara froze, breath trapped in her throat, her eyes wide and unblinking as the blanket lifted an inch on its own before settling back down. She whispered to herself, a soft, uncertain breath. That is not normal. And her mind raced through every medical file she had memorized. Yet nothing matched this. Nothing even came close. She leaned closer, careful, cautious. Her voice barely a thread of sound as she said, "Human soldier, can you hear me?" But there was no answer at first, only the hum of the ship and the distant echo of engines turning through cold space. She reached again with the cloth, touching his neck this time, wiping away dried blood, and the ripple returned, stronger, sharper, traveling from his ribs to his shoulder beneath the blanket like something alive. Lazara stepped back in alarm, the bowl almost slipping from her hand. Her heart pounded loud enough that she feared the drones above might hear it. She should have called security, she knew that. Yet something deep inside held her still. Something whispered that running would be wrong. The human's eyes shot open, ice blue and focused straight on her. Lazara gasped, stumbling one step backward. But she couldn't look away. Those eyes were not empty, not confused, they were aware. Sharp, like someone who had woken from a nightmare already knowing where he was and what danger surrounded him. He whispered a single word, a name she had never heard from human lips before. Lazara. Her breath broke, confusion and fear mixing with a strange warmth that wrapped around her chest. "How do you know my name?" she asked in a shaking voice. He didn't answer. Instead, the blanket rose again, this time lifting slowly as if controlled by invisible hands. Underneath it, the faint glow of silver lines began to appear, shifting like symbols on a breathing creature. The living armor fused to his ribs pulsed with dim light. No other medic had been able to clean his wounds. The armor had refused every touch except hers, but now it was reacting by itself, bending, opening, shaping symbols she recognized from ancient law scrolls, symbols that should never exist again. The sign of Aegis, the forbidden mark, the one tied to a war so old and bloody it was banned from every royal record. A soft metallic thread extended from the armor, reaching for her hand like a child seeking a parent. The air vibrated around it, tiny sparks dancing like fireflies as the thread hovered just inches from her glove. "Stay back," a guard shouted from behind the bay doors, alarms suddenly blaring red across the ceiling. Drones swooped down in attack stance, their lenses glowing like angry suns. But Lazara didn't move. Instead, her voice softened, filled with something even she didn't understand. "It's not attacking, it's responding." The human blinked slowly, painfully, and whispered again. This time not her name, but a promise. "I will protect." Before she could ask what he meant, the armor flared. A burst of bright silver light exploding outward like a newborn star. It washed over the medical bay, scattering drones, freezing guards, and filling the room with a humming sound that felt like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. Lazara shielded her face with her arm, the warmth of the light wrapping around her like a living hand. The blanket rose completely now, floating above the human as the armor expanded, plates forming, shifting, breathing like something ancient waking from a long sleep. Then the bay doors slammed open, metal shaking, soldiers rushing inside with shock lances pointed forward, the High Regent's emblem glowing on their armor as they shouted for everyone to stand down. Lazara looked at them, then at the human who lay there staring at her with those impossible eyes, and she felt a single truth rising inside her chest, a truth she had no words for yet. Something had awakened, Something forbidden. Something that had chosen them both, and nothing in her life, not her training, not the law, not even her fear, could stop the feeling that this moment had just changed the fate of two worlds. The medical bay felt colder after the armor's light faded, as if the room itself feared what it had just witnessed. Lysara stood beside the human, her breath shaking, her heart racing in a rhythm she could not control. The guards surrounded her with weapons raised, their eyes wide with fear, but she could not move away from him. Something in his gaze held her there like invisible hands. The High Regent's voice crackled through the calm, sharp and commanding, ordering his soldiers to remove her from the chamber. But when one guard stepped forward, the armor on the human's chest pulsed once, a slow warning glow that made the air vibrate with silent threat. The guard froze, sweat rolling down his cheek, and slowly backed away. Lysara whispered gently, "Cole, can you hear me?" saying his name from the file she had read, testing whether he was truly awake or lost in the armor's pull. His eyes shifted toward her, tired but steady. He nodded once, a small movement but filled with meaning. "You should step away from him." "Princess," a senior medic hissed with fear, grabbing her arm. "The armor is alive, it reacts to you. This is dangerous." But Lysara pulled her arm free with quiet strength, her voice soft yet firm. "I am not leaving him." Cole tried to sit up, a painful grunt escaping him, and Lysara quickly moved to support his back, her hands gentle as she helped him rise. The armor flowed like liquid metal to ease his motion, shaping a brace around his ribs. The medics gasped, stepping backward, whispering about the forbidden myths of Aegis that were never meant to awaken. Cole blinked at her, confused but calm, his voice low and rough. "You saved me," he said, the words slow and heavy as if pulled from deep exhaustion. Lysara felt heat rise in her chest at the sincerity of his tone. She shook her head softly. "No, you woke on your own." But Cole looked at her with eyes full of quiet truth. "I woke because of you." Before she could speak, the doors slammed open again, this time with the High Regent stepping inside, tall, imposing, surrounded by elite guards whose armor glowed crimson. His steps echoed like judgment across the room. He stopped in front of the table, his gaze burning into Lysara's trembling figure. "This human is bonded to forbidden technology," the Regent said, his voice cold and heavy like stone. "The armor shall be removed and studied, even if the human dies." Lysara's heart clenched. The idea of Cole being cut open for research sent a sharp fear through her chest. Cole looked at her, and for a moment she felt the entire universe narrow to that one connection between their eyes. "No," she whispered, barely audible but filled with a strength that surprised even her. The Regent's head snapped toward her, anger sparking in his stare. "You dare challenge the law made before your birth?" Lysara swallowed, her voice steady but soft. The law warned against this armor bonding with royal blood or human survivors, but it did not say we must kill them to hide our fear. The room fell silent. Tension thick as storm clouds, the Regent slowly approached her, his presence heavy, his voice low. "You forget yourself, Princess. Your compassion blinds you." Cole tensed, the armor humming in clear warning, threads of silver light lifting from his skin like protective blades. Guards raised weapons, ready to strike, but Lysara stepped closer and placed her hand on the armor. And instantly the threads lowered, folding back into calm ripples. Everyone stared in disbelief, a silence so thick it felt alive. Lysara felt the armor warm beneath her palm, not painfully, but like a heartbeat recognizing her touch. She whispered, "It trusts me." And when she looked at Cole, he gave a slow nod as if he already knew. The Regent's jaw tightened, but he turned to his guards and gave a sharp command. "Prepare the transfer cell. The human is to be taken for removal tonight." Lysara's breath caught, fear shooting through her. "He will not survive that," she said, her words trembling with rising panic. The Regent didn't even look at her as he spoke. "Then the galaxy will lose one human soldier. Nothing more." Cole's fingers curled weakly at the edge of the blanket, his voice strained. "Lysara," and something in the way he said her name made her step closer, blocking the guards from reaching him. "You cannot do this," she said louder now, her heart pounding with desperate courage. "He is alive, he is conscious, he is not an experiment." The Regent turned, fully toward her, and his next words cut through the room like a blade. "If you interfere again, Princess, you will be treated as a traitor." Those words hit her like a blow, but what hurt more was looking at Cole and seeing quiet acceptance in his eyes, as if he expected this fate. as if he had lived his whole life knowing he was disposable to someone, somewhere. Something deep inside Lysara broke. A quiet crack that filled with fierce, burning resolve. She leaned close to Cole, pretending to check his vitals as the guards watched, but her whisper carried the weight of rebellion. "I will not let them cut you." Cole's eyes shifted to hers, soft and grateful, the armor pulsing once like a heartbeat that answered her promise. As the guards prepared the transfer cage, Lysara made her decision, a decision that went against centuries of law, against her own bloodline, against the future she had been raised for. Tonight she would break the rules of her people. Tonight she would choose life over law. Tonight she would save him outside the bay. Alarms shifted into transport protocols. Boots thundered like approaching storms, and Lysara's fingers tightened around the edge of the table as she whispered to him again. Barely a breath. When the lights cut, "Run toward me." Cole's armor glowed faintly as if saying it understood, as if destiny itself had begun moving beneath the blanket long before she ever touched him. The night cycle on the royal cruiser felt darker than usual. Every hallway whispering danger as Lysara guided the half-weak human soldier through hidden passages only she knew. The alarms were muted now, running on low volume so the guards could speak to each other without shouting, but that only made every sound feel sharper, closer, more threatening. Cole leaned on her arm as they moved, his steps unsteady, his breaths heavy, yet he never complained, never asked her to slow down. Instead, he kept his eyes forward with the quiet strength of a soldier who had survived far worse. When they slipped into the small cargo chapel, the door sealed behind them with a soft hiss, shutting out the noise of the world outside. Inside the space was dim, glowing only with gentle blue lights from ancient runes carved into the walls. Lysara guided Cole to a platform where wounded warriors would traditionally kneel to regain strength. But tonight the room felt like a sanctuary stolen from time, a moment of peace carved out in the middle of fear. Lysara knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she helped him settle against the smooth stone. The armor on his chest pulsed faintly like a heartbeat that didn't belong to flesh. Cole exhaled slowly, his voice quiet but steady. "You risked everything for me," he said, as if he still couldn't understand why someone would do that. Lysara looked at him, her eyes soft and bright with emotion she didn't yet know how to name. "You are alive," she whispered. "I couldn't let them take that away." He gave a small, tired smile, the kind that comes from deep gratitude. And for a moment the tension in the room eased, but the armor beneath his skin rippled again, this time rising like flowing metal across his shoulder, forming light symbols that hovered in the air before fading. Lysara leaned closer, breath catching in awe. She raised her hand slowly, and the armor responded, shaping a thin film of glowing silver that rose to meet her fingertips. "It listens to you," Cole said softly, watching the way the armor moved toward her like a living creature. Lysara nodded, voice trembling. "It only reacts when you are near, but it obeys when I speak." She paused, studying the shifting patterns. "It is not a weapon, it's something older, something meant to be awakened." Cole's fingers brushed the edge of the armor, and it expanded instantly, forming a curved wing of metal along his forearm, the movement smooth and silent like a breath. The glow reflected in his eyes as he stared at it in wonder. "Can I control it?" he asked quietly. "We should test it," Lysara said, her voice rising with cautious curiosity. She stood up slowly and took a step backward. Then she raised her hand and spoke a single word in the old healing dialect. "Steady." The armor shifted, retreating into a calm plate-like form across his ribs. Cole blinked in surprise, breathing slowly, as if the armor itself had just obeyed a command from her. She spoke again, choosing a different tone. "Rise," the armor responded instantly, forming into a shoulder guard, then a gauntlet, then a small, glowing shield that hovered for a heartbeat before molding back into his body. Cole laughed softly, a breathy sound filled with disbelief and awe. "That's incredible," he whispered. Lysara felt warmth swell in her chest, watching him find strength through something so strange and beautiful. She approached and reached out again, touching the edge of the armor. "Try moving your arm," she said, her voice gentle but encouraging. Cole obeyed, lifting his arm slowly, wincing at first, but the armor moved with him, supporting him like a second skeleton, guiding him through the pain. "It's helping me," he murmured, testing another movement, this time smoother, cleaner, stronger. Lysara nodded, her eyes bright with wonder. "It wants you to live," she whispered. They spent long moments testing small motions, simple commands, slow controlled breathing, She taught him the tones of the healing dialect, and each time he repeated one, the armor responded with a new shape, a new movement, a new light. The air in the chapel shimmered with soft glows like tiny stars brushing against the stone floor. At one point, Cole stumbled, exhaustion washing over him like a heavy wave. Lysara moved quickly, catching him before he fell, their faces inches apart, their breaths mixing in the tense quiet. Cole's eyes met hers, filled with a warm sincerity that made her chest ache. "Thank you," he whispered, not just for catching him, but for everything she had done. Lysara felt something inside her soften, something she had never let anyone touch before. But the moment shattered when shadows moved outside the chapel windows. Two guards passing by, whispering about the human transfer happening earlier than planned. Lysara's heartbeat spiked, fear coiling in her stomach. Cole saw the fear in her eyes and straightened himself, even though he was weak. "We don't have much time, do we?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "They will come for you soon." "And for you," Cole said quietly, because he knew she had crossed a line no princess had ever dared cross. Lysara swallowed the fear, her resolve hardening like forged steel. "Then we must leave before they trap us," she said softly. But her voice carried a quiet fire, a fire that felt new, dangerous, and unstoppable. The armor pulsed again, projecting a faint map into the air. A map Lysara recognized instantly, her breath catching. "It's showing us a path," she whispered. Cole looked at the floating symbols, then at her, his voice steady. "Lead the way." Outside, distant alarms began to rise again, slow at first, then sharper, closer, growing like the approaching footsteps of fate. And inside the chapel, the soft glow of ancient runes filled the silence as Lysara and Cole prepared to walk into a future that neither of their worlds was ready for. But destiny had already moved beneath the blanket once, and now it was moving again, stronger, louder, unstoppable. The moment Lysara pushed open the chapel's hidden door, a cold rush of air hit her face, carrying the distant echo of boots pounding across metal floors, every sound sharper than before, every shadow looking like danger waiting to strike. Cole moved beside her, still weak but determined, the armor lending him strength he shouldn't have had, its faint silver glow tracing along his ribs like a heartbeat made of light. "We need to move fast," Lysara whispered, guiding him into the narrow service tunnel behind the chapel. The walls humming with energy lines that pulsed like veins. Cole nodded without hesitation, even though each step sent pain flickering across his features. He held onto the tunnel rail with one hand while the armor supported the other side, adjusting itself with every movement like a protective guardian learning his body. The tunnel twisted sharply, dropping into darkness. Lysara flicked her wrist and activated a soft light orb, its glow floating beside them, casting long shadows over their path. "Soldiers use these maintenance routes only during emergencies," she whispered. "Tonight counts." Cole gave a faint smile at her attempt to lighten the fear, but there was no time to enjoy it. A siren blared in the distance. Not loud but sharp enough to cut through their bones. Cole tensed, the armor reacting instantly by forming thin blade-like ridges along his forearms. Lysara felt a rush of alarm and gently touched his shoulder. "Easy," she said softly, and the armor melted back into a smooth plate. Obeying her voice like a loyal beast, they reached the end of the tunnel, and she pressed her palm against a small amber panel. The wall slid open to reveal the lower transport bay, dimly lit with blue emergency lights flickering over crates. Drones and two idle patrol crafts. The bay was quiet, but Lysara could feel tension in the air, something heavy like the world holding its breath. Cole moved beside her, eyes scanning the space with trained focus. "They'll search here first," he whispered. Lysara nodded, her pulse racing. "That's why we won't stay long," she said. "We take the cutter and leave before the Regent blocks the hangar." But before they could step onto the floor, heavy footsteps echoed from the opposite side of the bay, a squad marching in tight formation, their armor glowing red under the emergency lights. Lysara froze, pulling Cole back behind a column, her breathing shallow. The soldiers walked straight toward the very craft she had planned to use. Cole leaned close, his voice faint but steady. "We need another way." Lysara's mind raced, searching for an option, any option, but the Regent had placed guards in every critical area. She could almost feel his influence choking the corridors of the ship like a shadow made of iron. A soft beep echoed behind them, and Lysara nearly jumped, but when she turned, her breath caught in her throat. Standing in the dim light was Captain Rhea, Lysara's childhood friend. Dressed in pilot gear and holding a security override key, her expression torn between fear, loyalty and disbelief. "Lysara," she whispered, "you really did it. You actually broke the law." Lysara stepped forward, her voice soft but desperate. "Rhea, please. I need your help." Rhea's eyes dropped to Cole, taking in the glowing armor and the worn exhaustion on his face. Her voice trembled. "The Regent will exile you for this." Or worse, Cole lowered his head, as if expecting her to turn away, but Lysara took a step closer, her voice cracking with emotion. "I cannot let them kill him, Rhea, not because of fear, not because of an old law no one truly understands." Rhea stared at her for a long moment, the battle in her heart clear. Then she exhaled sharply, her shoulders dropping. "Fine," she said, her voice firming. "I'll get you out, but after this, you're on your own." She motioned for them to follow, leading them through a narrow maintenance ladder that overlooked the backup hangar on the lower deck. The lights were brighter here, engines humming softly as technicians worked on a small patrol cutter, one that was not yet assigned for the night. Lysara's breath steadied when she realized it was their chance. Rhea jumped down first, activating her override key to shut off local alarms for 30 seconds. "Go," she whispered. "Before I change my mind." Lysara helped Cole descend the ladder carefully, his grip tight but steady, the armor shaping itself like a brace along his back. They moved quickly across the hangar floor, the hum of engines and distant alarms blending into a tense, buzzing silence. The cutter door opened and Rhea followed them inside, her hands flying over the controls as she activated stealth mode. "Once you're out of range, head toward the neutral moon," she instructed. "It's the only place the Regent's authority can't reach without triggering a war council." Cole settled into the co-pilot seat. Breathing heavily but focused, Lysara strapped in beside him, her heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her fingertips. Rhea looked back at both of them, her gaze softening for a moment. "Lysara, stay alive," she whispered. The engines roared to life, the cutter lifted, shadows rushing beneath it. The hangar gates opened with a grinding groan, and then they shot into the stars, leaving the cruiser behind like a dying dream. But the moment they reached open space, Lysara's breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening as massive shapes emerged from the darkness. A dreadnought fleet was waiting, thousands of lights burning like cold fire across their hulls, the same forbidden symbol glowing on the flagship that rested on Cole's chest. Destiny had not let them escape. It had only pushed them into the next battle. The neutral moon looked quiet from orbit, a soft blue sphere floating alone in the darkness. But the moment Lysara guided the cutter toward its surface, she felt a strange pull on her chest, a feeling like invisible hands guiding them to a place older than memory. Cole sat beside her, his eyes fixed on the swirling clouds below, the armor on his chest pulsing gently as if sensing something waiting for them. As the cutter descended, a soft vibration filled the cabin, faint at first, then rising into a deep hum that resonated in the walls. Cole's fingers tightened on the armrest. "Do you feel that?" he whispered, his voice steady but filled with wonder. Lysara nodded, her heart beating faster. "Yes, the armor is reacting to the moon." When they landed on a small plateau of smooth silver stone, the sky above them shimmered with strange lights, thin streams of blue energy shifting like rivers in the air. Cole stepped out of the ship slowly, each breath visible in the cold air. "This place feels alive," he murmured, and the armor rippled in agreement. Lysara moved beside him, her voice soft as she whispered, "There's an ancient vault here, it's only a myth, but maybe the armor knows." The armor brightened silently, casting a faint glow on the silver ground, forming gentle paths of light leading toward a towering rock formation, shaped like a broken crown. Cole followed the glowing trail with careful steps, Lysara close behind him, both of them walking deeper into a quiet that felt sacred. As they approached the formation, the ground trembled softly, a hidden doorway sliding open with a slow sigh, releasing a pale mist that carried the scent of old metal and forgotten storms. A vast chamber came into view, walls carved with glowing symbols that mirrored the ones on Cole's armor. Lysara's breath caught in her throat. This is impossible," she whispered. Cole stepped forward, feeling the air thicken with strange energy. He pressed his palm against one of the walls and the whole chamber awakened, light flooding every symbol until the place glowed like a captured sunrise. A hologram flickered into shape before them, a tall figure with no clear species, neither human nor alien, its voice soft but echoing like wind through mountains. "Two worlds divided by fear," it said, its tone filled with ancient sorrow, yet bound by courage and compassion. Lysara's heart tightened, her voice barely a breath. "What are you?" The figure raised its hand toward Cole and Lysera. We were the makers of Aegis, guardians of balance. Creators of peace between rival stars. Cole exchanged a stunned glance with Lysera. The hologram continued. The armor awakens only when two hearts stand against fear together. Human strength and alien compassion. United in danger. A cold shiver ran down Lysera's spine as the truth settled in. She looked at Cole, seeing him not as an enemy soldier but as someone fate had pulled toward her for a reason she had not understood until now. Cole's voice was quiet but filled with awe. So, the armor chose us? Yes, the hologram replied. And with this awakening comes burden. The regent seeks the Aegis to rule both peoples through fear. He commands a fleet built not for protection, but for domination. Lysera felt her breath shake, remembering the dreadnoughts that blocked the stars behind them. Then he will destroy the human colony, she whispered. The hologram's voice dimmed with sadness. He will sacrifice many to claim what he desires. Cole clenched his fists, anger rising in his eyes. There has to be a way to stop him. The armor pulsed again, projecting a new symbol into the air. A sphere surrounded by two intersecting rings. Lysera recognized it from forbidden texts. The trial of worth, she whispered. A test meant to unify Aegis pairs. The vault floor lit up in a circular pattern, revealing a platform at its center. The hologram's voice deepened. Only those who stand together with shared purpose may unlock Aegis Prime. The form capable of protecting entire worlds. Cole looked at Lysera, and she felt the weight of his trust settle on her shoulders. Will you stand with me? He asked softly. Not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as someone who had seen her risk everything for him. Lysera stepped toward him, her eyes shining. Yes, she whispered. Because I believe in you. Together they stepped onto the glowing platform. The chamber darkened, wind swirling around them even though the air was still. The armor expanded, threads of silver rising into the air and wrapping around Lysera's wrists like gentle vines. She gasped but didn't pull away. Instead, she reached for Cole's hand, their fingers locking with natural certainty. The armor surged, a wave of blinding silver that wrapped around both of them, tightening, sinking their breaths, sinking their heartbeats, sinking their fear and hope into something stronger. The floor shook as the chamber sang with ancient power. The hologram faded into the swirling light as the armor formed a new shape around them both. Something forged from unity rather than control. Something powerful enough to defy a fleet. When the light faded, they stood together wrapped in a shared armor of gleaming silver. Aegis Prime, forged not by violence but by trust. Cole exhaled shakily, feeling the strength of the armor flowing through him like living fire. Lysera stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly with the same silver energy. But before they could speak, a harsh crackle echoed through the chamber, the regent's voice slicing into the moment like a blade. Broadcast through a stolen channel. Princess Lysera, he hissed. I see you have found what belongs to the crown. Your moon is surrounded, and the human colony will fall within the hour. Lysera felt her heart twist with shock. Cole stepped forward, his voice deep with rising fury. If you touch them, you will answer to us. The regent's laugh echoed cold and cruel like a distant storm. Let us see if your new armor can stop fate. The transmission ended. The chamber fell silent, and Lysera felt the weight of destiny settle onto their shoulders, heavier than anything she had ever carried. The human colony had only 1 hour left, and the battle that would shape two worlds was already beginning. The sky above the human colony burned with streaks of fire as dreadnought engines split the clouds. And in the middle of that growing storm, Lysera and Cole dropped out of the jump shift like two sparks of silver light, their bodies wrapped in the shared glow of Aegis Prime, the armor forming seamless curves across their shoulders and arms, binding them together in strength and breath. Cole felt power racing through his veins like living electricity. Lysera felt calm rising in her chest like a steady flame, and for one moment they hovered above the trembling colony as if suspended between fear and destiny. Below them, civilians rushed through dusty streets, alarms echoing like broken cries. Soldiers scrambled to defensive lines, and the space elevator tower glowed faintly. As engineers tried to evacuate families before the bombardment began, Cole's eyes hardened when he saw it, his voice low and filled with purpose. We protect them all. Lysera placed her hand over his, her voice soft but steady. Together. The armor responded to their unity, a ripple of light expanding from their chests like a heartbeat, The silver glow intensified, and with a single combined thought they shot downward like a falling star, landing on the colony's main platform with a blast of wind that shook dust from rooftops. Soldiers stared at them in shock, unsure whether the glowing pair were enemies or miracles. Cole stepped forward, the armor forming a solid shield across his arm as lasers rained from enemy drones. Each blast deflected with a warm metallic hum. He pushed forward through the fire, every step powerful but controlled, his eyes sharp with the determination of a man who had promised himself he would never let innocent people die while he still breathed. Lysara moved beside him, her hands weaving soft signals that shaped the armor into shifting patterns, shields blossoming like petals to protect fleeing families, shimmering walls rising to block falling debris. Children clung to her robes, their voices shaking with fear until she knelt and whispered, "You are safe," and the armor brightened at her words. The colony commander rushed toward them, panting and covered in dust. "We never expected help," he said, staring in disbelief at the living armor wrapped around Cole and Lysara. Cole grabbed his shoulder gently. "We hold them here. Get your people inside the towers." The commander nodded and sprinted away, shouting new orders. Soldiers fell into formation around the glowing pair with renewed hope. Through the rising chaos, a deep vibration shook the ground. The Regent's flagship descended lower, its shadow swallowing half the colony. Lysara felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She could almost sense the Regent's cruel satisfaction radiating from the ship above them. Cole's eyes narrowed, anger and resolve burning like a storm inside him. "He wants to break them with fear," he murmured. Lysara touched his arm, her voice quiet but fierce. "Then we will give them hope, louder than his fear." A wave of enemy dropships burst from the clouds, soldiers in crimson armor pouring out in disciplined lines, blasters firing through the smoke. Cole charged forward, the aegis forming a long spear of light along his arm. He swung it in a single sweeping motion that sent shock waves rippling across the battlefield. The soldiers staggered, some falling, others dropping weapons in shock. The spear dissolved and instantly reformed into a shield as Cole blocked a barrage of fire meant for a group of engineers trapped behind broken machinery. Lysara moved like flowing light beside him, her hands drawing arcs through the air, commanding the aegis to create shimmering barriers that curved like protective wings over wounded defenders. She whispered to each terrified civilian she passed, and the armor answered her voice by strengthening the shields around them. The battle grew tighter. Drones swarmed, ships circled, and the ground shook as explosions carved scars across the colony. Cole and Lysara fought together as if they shared the same heartbeat. When Cole pushed forward, Lysara shielded his side. When Lysara reached to heal a wounded child, Cole turned the armor into a protective shell around both of them. The aegis glowed brighter with every shared breath, every shared choice, becoming stronger not through violence, but through unity. Then a voice echoed across the battlefield, sharp and cold, projected from the Regent's flagship. "Lysara," he spat, his tone dripping with fury. "You stand with a species that would burn your world." Lysara stood tall, lifting her gaze to the towering ship above, her voice soft but carried by the armor's resonance. "Fear burns worlds, not humans." Her words reverberated across the colony, soldiers on both sides freezing as the ancient calm in her tone cut through the chaos. The Regent snarled through the speakers, "Then let fear teach you your final lesson." And the flagship's underbelly opened, revealing the forbidden sun lance, a weapon so powerful it was banned in every system, a beam that could tear apart the space elevator and kill thousands in seconds. Cole's heart seized in panic. He grabbed Lysara's hand. "We have to shield them," he whispered. Lysara squeezed his fingers, her eyes shining with fierce determination. Together, the Aegis Prime reacted instantly, sensing their unified will. Threads of silver light burst from their armor, weaving into a vast shimmering sphere that began forming over the entire elevator tower. The air trembled around them, wind whipping their hair as the armor strained, glowing brighter than ever before. The Regent fired the sun lance, a roaring beam of golden energy cutting through the sky, rushing toward the colony like the wrath of a dying star. Cole gritted his teeth, pushing every ounce of strength he had into the shield. Lysara's voice trembled but never broke as she whispered calming tones that kept the barrier steady. The beam struck their shield with a blinding flash, the ground shaking beneath their feet as if the world itself was crying out. The shield held. Barely, but it held. Cole felt his knees buckle, the strain tearing through every muscle. Lysara leaned against him, her breath shaky, her heart pounding in sync with his. They held the shield together as the beam burned brighter, hotter, louder, until the sky itself fractured with light. Then everything went white. Silent, endless. And the fate of the colony hung suspended in the blinding glow, waiting for the world to return. Silence stretched across the colony like a fragile veil, the sun lance beam gone, leaving only scorched clouds and drifting smoke curling from battered towers. Lysara's chest rose and fell rapidly, her hand still clasped around Cole's, both of them wrapped in the faint, steady glow of Aegis Prime, the armor settling like a second skin around them. Humming softly as if sighing in relief, Cole's eyes scanned the horizon, the dreadnoughts in retreat, the remaining enemy soldiers, frozen or surrendering under the awe of the armor's brilliance. He let out a shaky breath, disbelief and exhaustion mixing with triumph. "It's over," he whispered, but the words felt fragile, as if saying them aloud could shatter the peace they had fought so hard to earn. Lysara shook her head slowly, voice soft, "Not yet." Her eyes glimmered with the weight of what remained. She surveyed the colony, seeing civilians helping each other, soldiers aiding the wounded, and children clinging to parents with eyes wide in shock and wonder. Her voice trembled with quiet awe. "They survived because we stood." They moved through the streets, the armor retracting just enough to allow their hands and faces free. People stared, whispers filling the air like a rising tide. The Aegis Prime shimmered faintly with every heartbeat, reflecting hope in a world that had only known fear. A wounded child ran toward them, tripping over debris, and Lysara caught him effortlessly whispering, "You are safe now." The child's eyes sparkled, a faint smile breaking through the dust and fear, and Cole reached down, offering a small hand, helping him to his feet. A group of soldiers knelt, heads bowed, offering quiet thanks, and Cole's lips pressed into a thin line, the pride and weight of command settling on him. He looked at Lysara, voice low but strong. "We gave them a chance." She nodded, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. A chance to live, to choose, to fight for themselves. Above them, the sky began to clear, the clouds tinged with the soft blue of dawn, the dreadnoughts retreating into the stars like shadows fleeing from light, and Lysara felt the weight of the ancient trial lift slightly, the Aegis Prime responding to their relief, the silver threads pulsing softly, almost like a heartbeat in unison with theirs. Cole's gaze fell on the partially destroyed space elevator, engineers scrambling to secure civilians. He clenched his fists, voice low and steady. "We have to finish the rescue. Everyone must get out." Lysara nodded, signaling with her hands, shaping protective shields with her voice, barriers rising around the workers and families like glass walls of light, bending and twisting to absorb debris and fire, the armor moving in perfect sync with her will. A voice crackled in her mind, soft but clear. "The remnants of the hologram from the vault. You have awakened the balance, now protect it." And she shivered, understanding fully for the first time that they were more than soldier and princess, more than human and alien. They were the living embodiment of hope, of unity, of law made alive in the protection of the weak. Cole followed her gaze, whispering, "It chose us, but we must prove we can protect what it has given." Lysara squeezed his hand, voice steady, "And we will." The last shuttle lifted from the colony, civilians and soldiers alike safe, and the sun rose fully over the horizon, spilling warm light across broken streets, the sky streaked with smoke and gold, a promise of renewal in every ray. Lysara breathed in deeply, feeling exhaustion and triumph mingling in her chest. She glanced at Cole, their armor glowing softly, reflecting the dawn, and she felt something new, a quiet certainty blossoming between them. He looked at her then, eyes tired but steady, voice low. "Do you think destiny brought us together, or did we make it?" Lysara smiled faintly, tears glimmering. Maybe both, she said, stepping closer, their foreheads touching lightly. The armor, responding, shimmering faintly with warmth as if affirming her words. Behind them, Captain Rhea approached, eyes soft with relief. You actually did it, she murmured, shaking her head. You held the impossible and saved them all. Lysara nodded, voice gentle. We held it together, and Cole's hand brushed against hers, a silent agreement that went deeper than words. The High Regent's fleet had vanished into the void. His authority broken, the remaining soldiers either surrendered or fled, and Lysara knew the old laws would have to change. That the galaxy would remember this day not for fear or punishment, but for courage, for mercy, for the unity of two hearts standing against overwhelming darkness. Cole crouched beside a small group of children, helping them gather scattered supplies, and Lysara knelt next to him, her hand brushing the soft hair of a frightened girl, the aegis pulsing lightly, protective, gentle, alive, whispering in silver threads of light that safety was possible, that life could continue, that law could be more than rules on paper. It could be living, breathing, a shield for those who could not defend themselves. As the sun climbed higher, Lysara and Cole walked slowly through the colony, every step heavy with fatigue but light with triumph. The survivors looking to them as symbols of hope, of courage, of the promise that even in the darkest moments, unity and compassion could rise stronger than fear. They paused on a small hill overlooking the colony, hands still clasped, the armor glowing softly around them, and Lysara whispered, voice full of awe and relief. We did it, Cole, he smiled, a soft, tired human smile. Together, he said, and she laughed quietly, a sound that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. The sky above them was calm now, the stars fading before the full light of day. The colony slowly coming alive again, and in that moment, Lysara and Cole understood that they had done more than save a world. They had awakened a living law, a living hope, and a living bond between human and alien. The aegis settled around them quietly, threads of silver fading to a soft glow, as if acknowledging their victory and their choice. The armor's voice silent now, but its presence unmistakable. Lysara looked at Cole, voice soft and steady. The future is ours to protect, he nodded, his eyes bright. And we will. Together. Hand in hand, armored and united. They watched the survivors rebuild, watched hope rise from the ashes, watched life continue, and for the first time, the galaxy felt a little safer, a little warmer, because two hearts had chosen to stand against fear, against law twisted by ambition, against destiny itself, and in that silver glow of dawn, with the hum of aegis still gentle across their skin, they walked forward into a world that would never forget. The day courage became law and love became armor.